Good morning. This is Arlan Suderman, Chief Commodities Economist at StoneX, coming to you around 9 a.m. from the trading floor on Tuesday, December 30th, and wishing you a happy new year as we're about ready to bring 2025 to a close. Taiwan, crisis averted or a sign of risks to come for the commodities? That's what I want to talk about this morning. Justice Mission 2025 is what China called it, and that intensified today. That was their military drills around Taiwan, the sixth of such that they've had here over the last couple of years or so. China put on its full scale intimidation show, military drills with live fire. Surrounding Taiwan, blockading its ports, and getting more area, more involvement, more military live fire, closer to Taiwan than any of the previous ones have been. It was a 10-hour live fire drill, including 71 military aircraft, 24 Navy and Coast Guard vessels, according to Taiwan's defense ministry, and it did trigger an activation of Taiwan's defense plan. It was most intense military exercise to date around Taiwan. It took place closer than ever before while covering a much larger area, as I indicated. China's showing its irritation at both Japan and the United States. First, Japan's new prime minister making a statement earlier in the month about its willingness to use military force to help defend Taiwan if necessary. And then when President Trump announced an $11.1 billion sale of arms to Taiwan, that was another factor believed to be in this as well. Now, what's interesting here is that China is being very careful not to directly accuse the United States of anything. It's being more direct against Japan, since Japan's prime minister refuses to recant on her comment or retract her comment. But President Trump and President Xi, with the handshake on October 30th, seem to have declared a truce, but yet they still want to show force. They still don't want to look weak before their people, don't want to look like they're backing down. And of course, Taiwan is a non negotiable issue for China. Chinese leadership has said in the past that they promise to quote unquote reunify Taiwan to the mainland. It's only a question of timing. There are many analysts who believe that China is working up to a 2027 move on Taiwan. This is something we'll have to keep an eye on. Now, first of all, let's go back to President Trump and President Xi's handshake on October 30th. Both of them have reasons for declaring a little bit of a truce between each other over the coming months ahead. Um, Things are not well with China's economy. It's got some deep and significant problems that create, in my belief, some cracks in his support base. By no means do we anticipate that President Xi is on his way out. We think his position as head of China is well in place. But that doesn't mean there can't be cracks in his support. And I think that he wants to get some peace in the international waters so he can focus on the domestic issues. And certainly the extra 100% tariffs on China would have been very, very damaging to it that President Trump had threatened. At the same time, President Trump has some problems of his own back home, and that is the midterm elections. He only has a very narrow lead in both the House and the Senate. And history tells us that the party in the White House tends to lose votes in both the House of Representatives and the Senate midterm elections. If he were to lose both houses, he would be vulnerable to impeachment, and certainly his agenda would appear to be dead. And that is a concern of President Trump. He has set the stage for a powerful economic comeback in 2026 that could swing the tide in his favor, but he has to remove uncertainty. And uncertainty not only includes his tariff war, which he's trying to calm down right now to remove that uncertainty, but also his relationships with other countries. And China is a key country of that. So even with this Justice Mission 25, as China calls it, around Taiwan, this mission of intimidation in reaction to Japan and the United States, we see that President Trump comment, oh, well, this is another thing they've been doing for the last 20 years. This is nothing different. He's talking down the rhetoric, not trying to overreact in a way that could bring us into an escalation in relationship. And so this continues to be the way the two are operating, wanting to show strength, but not overall engaging and escalating the relationship between the two. And that would seem to be good for the trade deal moving forward. A trade deal, which, by the way, we still do not have completed. The two sides keep working on, and now we've gone on 2 months and they still have not finished the details of it. But China continues to buy soybeans, little wheat, some grain sorghum, canceled some wheat. Um, they're buying some pork. Um, we'd like to see the full details of that trade deal to give us any confidence. But Taiwan remains the flashpoint that could undo that trade deal. Will it be this year? Will it this coming year? Will it be 2027? Will it be 2028? We don't know when it'll be, but this is what we do know. China's not going to stand on its shoreline and say, oh, by the way, we're going to attack Taiwan. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to do what Russia did, where Russia did war exercises around Ukraine, around the perimeter of Ukraine. And they did it for a long enough period of time and enough time that even a few days before they invaded Ukraine, most people say, oh, Russia's just doing what Russia does. They're not going to invade Ukraine. That's what we heard from inside of Ukraine, even. And that's what they're doing. They're softening up the Taiwan for that, intimidating people, saying, "Oh, we can't win a war with China. We better give in. We better yield to them." Uh, well, getting them used to it. Oh, it's just another exercise, and then one of those exercises turns into an actual landing, a strategic landing. That is what we need to watch for when it'll happen. We don't know the month, the date, what year even that will happen, but when it does happen, this is much of what it will look like. Now, the interesting thing about today's action is their PLA Eastern Theater Command released a video on its social media account titled So Near, So Beautiful, Anytime to Taipei, Taipei being the capital city of Taiwan. And the video featured an aerial view of Taipei's 101 skyscraper, which is a noted landmark building in Taiwan's capital city. The video taken by a PLA drone flying over the city of Taiwan. So the the threat, the risk continues on. It looks like it's going to calm down. It looks like the military assets are going to return home now after this. That is the expectation at this point. Do President Trump and President Xi have some type of an agreement? We don't know. But the two don't seem to want to have that confrontation right now. If and when the time does come that China does make a move on Taiwan, the United States will have to take a stand. Even if China is successful in gaining control over Taiwan, the United States will have to have a response. That response will likely not be good for trade, for commodity trade with China. And so that's a risk that you always need to keep in mind in your trading and marketing strategies going forward. But for now, it looks like things are going to calm down. We'll go back as we were. It looks like China is going to withdraw its military assets for the time being until the next showdown, until the next confrontation. If you look at the over in Eastern Europe, looks like the peace talks have again hit hard times. President Putin accusing Ukraine of a drone attack attempt on his personal residence. Ukraine vehemently denies it, saying that he's using this in order to undermine the peace talks, regardless what the truth is. This is yet another cycle we've seen where it looks like we're making progress in the peace talks, and Russia does something to pull the rug out from under them. And so, while we may be closer than we've been in a long, long time, maybe the duration of the war to peace, we're still a long ways away from peace. And in fact, we had another strike on Ukraine's ports overnight and early today, including hitting a ship that was, I believe, Panama flagged, that was in the port loading with wheat or preparing to load with wheat exports. So it continues to be a factor. Commodities are increasingly becoming the focus of both sides in this war, both Russia and Ukraine. So, with that, a happy end to 2025. May 2026 bring more peace and prosperity. The risks go with it. And I wish you all a happy new year. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to continue to get these updates from the trading floor. I will see you next year.